So I know my uploads have been pretty sporadic lately. I've been pretty busy, but I figured I would show you something that I've recently decided to dip my toes into. As you can see over my left shoulder there. So yeah, as you can see, I decided to finally get a kayak. I've been, thinking about buying one for almost a year now, but I've, for various reasons had to put it off. But I finally did it, ladies and gentlemen. I finally decided to pull the trigger on a budget kayak. So, in all its glory, all its lime green glory, you have in front of you the Tahoma 100 from Lifetime, who are a pretty reputable budget kayak manufacturer. This is their 10-foot model, as denoted by the 100 there. It comes with a paddle, as you can see, and everything else that you can see. Now, I was looking at various kayaks. I was looking at Sun Dolphins, I was looking at Lifetime kayaks, I was looking at some other brands too, and I was trying to catch one of them on a sale, because I honestly was trying to spend less than $300. That was kind of my budget. And I found this one at Walmart on sale for $175. Yeah, you didn't mishear me. $175. This kayak is usually, if you go off the retail price, is usually $300, and you usually can see them on sale from $200 to $250, anywhere in that range. But you very rarely, at least from what I've been able to tell, see them drop below that $200 mark. But this one was on sale for $175, and it's brand new. There's no blemishes, there's no scratches, there's no dents, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a brand new, perfectly good kayak, and it was $175. $175 gets you everything that you can see in front of you. Comes with a paddle, the backrest, the molded seat, the storage right there in the middle, obviously the bungee cords on the front and the back for additional stowage, handles on the sides right here, and then we have some more handles on the front, just these carry handles right there, and then we have another one on the back right here. Now, it is a bare bones kayak. It's worth bearing that in mind. This is certainly in the budget category for kayaks, hence the very cheap price, even at retail. A $300 kayak in the grand scheme of things is pretty cheap going when it comes to kayaks. So maybe go over some of the features, because obviously if you're watching this video, you're clearly in the market for a budget kayak, and you're probably looking at the Lifetime Tahoma and wondering whether or not it's suitable for your needs. So, starting at the front, we have some bungee cords for any stowage. We have these molded footrests that are not adjustable, but you can, manually adjust your seating position depending on your height. So that's fine. Looks like we have some kind of, I'm guessing this is the paddle keeper right here. It's like a little hook that you can attach something to. Maybe put some bungee cord through there just to get your paddle nice and secure. We've got some scupper holes, as you can see, two, then two underneath the seat, and then I believe there's two right behind the seat. Yep, right there. Coming back towards the front of the boat, we've got some dry storage, which is nice. It's clamped down with this bungee cord, which if we just loosen that up a bit and then open it up, that's the storage. Now, the one significant issue I have with that storage compartment is that it's not compartmentalized. So if you put something in there and you're moving around, which you will inevitably do once you're on this thing, on the water, whatever is in there has a tendency of moving from front to back or from back to front. So, obviously if you're throwing in, waterproofs or camping equipment or batteries, that's not necessarily a huge concern. But, if you're putting sensitive things down there, things that you care about, just be bearing in mind that they will very likely move, and it may become a little bit difficult to get to them should they move all the way to the front or all the way to the back. Unless you've got very long arms, you might have a little bit of difficulty getting them. So something to bear in mind. But dry storage, it's always a bonus with these kind of kayaks, especially given the price point. So I'm just going to seal that back up. Nice and sealed. Ain't going anywhere. Right behind it we have some kind of cup holder. Almost certain I'll never use that, but you know, if you like you know, a big gulp from 7-Eleven, then that probably can go right there in front of you as you're fishing. So moving on to the seat, I figured I would briefly touch upon it because I realize a lot of you lads and ladies out there will be a little bit concerned about the seat, because you know, if you've read any reviews for this kayak, it would have been, you know, the big red flag from a lot of people who have bought and used this kayak. So the hull is made out of HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, and unfortunately that is exactly where you're going to be sitting. You're going to be sitting directly on the HDPE. There is no padding, there is nothing here. They've just molded a seat out of the material and you'll be sitting directly on top of it. Now the other models that they sell, there is a different model called the Lifetime Tamarack, which is a very similar kayak. It's almost, in terms of the hull construction, it's actually pretty much identical. The only difference, and there are some, but the major difference is that it does have a little bit of padding where the seat mold is there, which I would imagine helps a little bit, but I've read reviews on that kayak too, and they're not favorable about the seat. So you know, just something to bear in mind. Then obviously we have this backrest. Yeah, there's really not much I can talk about. I mean, it's just a simple adjustable backrest with these straps here. You can adjust it, tighten it based upon your seating position. You like a little bit forward, depending on your posture, a little bit back. It's entirely up to you. It's not the most comfortable thing. I mean, that's just a hard plastic. I don't think it's polyethylene, but it's something. And yeah, I wouldn't imagine it's very comfortable on your back for extended periods of time. There is no padding. I don't know if you can tell on the video, but that is just hard plastic. So coming to the back of the boat, again, just you know, those two scupper holes right there. Some more bungee cords for additional stowage or storage, should you choose to do so. And obviously the last thing really is this additional carry handle, which you know, is useful if you're requiring of two people to carry this. The paddle, I think it's an aluminium paddle, an aluminium construction. It's a two-piece paddle, which just disconnects right in the middle with this little push button, which I will try and just disassemble this off camera. There we go. As you can see, it's just two pieces. It's pretty, you know, pretty simple. It's an aluminium. I refuse to say aluminum, by the way, but it's an aluminium paddle. It's not the most lightweight thing in the world, but it will suffice. So I'm guessing another one of your concerns, because this was one of my concerns too, is if you're in the market for a budget kayak and you know, you're looking at the Lifetime kayaks and the Sun Dolphin kayaks, and you're looking at ones that are in sort of that 10 to 10.5 feet range, which are, you know, most of the budget kayaks out there, you're probably wondering, you know, is this kayak going to fit? Is this going to be a suitable kayak for my size, my weight, and my height? So what I thought I'd do, you know, as part of a sort of initial impressions video, is I'd go ahead and just sit in the kayak and just give you an idea of, you know, how I fit inside of it. So let's go ahead and do that. Just to sort of give you a sense of, you know, my height and my weight. So I'm 6 foot tall and about 185 pounds. Now for this, my weight doesn't really matter, it's more my height, because I'm sure you're wondering, you know, will I be able to fit inside of it? So I am 6 foot tall, as I say, and as you can see, there are these molded footrests, and we have a total of 4 of them, you know, to manually adjust your seating position depending on your height. Now I'm 6 foot tall, and I have to say that the comfortable seating position for me has my feet right at the bottom one, right here, at number 4. So if you're 6 foot tall, that is probably going to be the comfortable seating position for you. Certainly either this one or this one, 3 or 4. So you know, it's something to bear in mind, especially if, you know, you're somebody who's like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", because frankly, this kayak might be a little bit too small for you, and I know that is a bit of a blow to a lot of people who might be in the more budget frame of mind. But you know, I'm 6 foot tall, and let's actually, you know what? Let's actually get a accurate estimate just for how much foot room you have. Now, if I go, you know, to an extreme posture and I bend my knees, my heel is gonna slam up against this penultimate footrest, this second to last one. But if I want a comfortable seating position and I'm slouched, then that's where my foot's gonna be. Again, I'm 6 foot tall, so, you know, for any of you lads or ladies who are, you know, upwards of 6'4", 6'5", you know, this kayak is probably going to be too small for you. So you're going to be wanting to look at something that's at least maybe 11 feet, because otherwise you're going to feel a little bit cramped. And just to emphasize what I'm talking about, just to give you like a better angle, I suppose. So I've got a tape measure, right? And I'm going to leave that tape measure right there. Now, a comfortable seating position for me, where I'm a little bit slouched, has my heels planted at number 1 here. So as far down the boat as you can go. If I go, you know, bent knees, extreme posture, that's not as comfortable, then I'm at number 2 here. Again, I'm 6 foot tall, so that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, the limitations of the kayak if you are on the taller end of things. Now, if you're wondering, you know, if that's comfortable for me, you know, how much further do I have if I'm like 6'2", 6'3"? Well, again, I'm 6 foot tall, and a comfortable seating position, again, for me, has my heel at the very last footrest. If we look at the distance between that last footrest and the end of, you know, I would say the comfortable, you know, seating area, that's only about 4 inches, as you can see. So if you're like 6'6", 6'7", you know, your foot is basically going to be up on this plastic over here. And I can imagine that's not the most comfortable position to be sitting in for any extended period of time. So you got about 4 inches to play with. If you think you can, you know, just bend your knees a little bit and maybe straighten your back, I'm sure you can wing it. For me, I know I slouch a little bit. I know it's not the greatest posture, but you know, it works for me. And at 6 foot tall, my feet are, you know, right at the end of the footrests here. So something to bear in mind if you're, you know, taller than me. I'm pretty sure the weight is kind of irrelevant. The weight is kind of inconsequential. It's rated up to about 275 pounds. That fits the bill for most people. If it doesn't, then you're going to be getting a 12 or a 14 foot kayak anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, if you're over 300 pounds, I would not sit in this kayak. So yeah, if you're around my height, around my weight, I can't really speak to the weight just yet because I haven't tested it on the water, but in terms of my height, you know, I can test that just from sitting in it. So if you're about 6 foot tall, maybe 6'1", 6'2", I would say you're perfectly fine. Obviously any smaller than that, you're perfectly fine, because you've got those multiple footrests to, you know, adjust your seating position. So something to bear in mind as you're you know, on the lookout for a new kayak. I did want to touch a little bit on the Tahoma versus the Tamarack, because I know if you're in the market for a budget kayak, then you will undoubtedly have looked at both of those models that have been manufactured by Lifetime. Now, I know I already touched upon the differences in the seat, in that the Tamarack has a little bit of padding where they molded the seat there. Other differences include obviously the color. The Tahoma is only available in this lime green color, which I admit is very difficult to swallow for a lot of people. I know lime green is not necessarily, you know, a consensus pick for favorite color. For me personally, I don't mind. I actually somewhat appreciate it in the sense that it's got a lot of visibility. It's high visibility, meaning, you know, if I run into trouble, you know, I wouldn't have to worry about anybody really, tracking down my kayak or finding me as long as I was near the kayak. So for me, I don't really mind the color, but I can understand if people are a little bit put off by it. So the Tamarack does come in, I believe, like a moss green, a sort of beige color, and then some kind of sandy camo color, which I would consider to be, better alternatives to the lime green, if I'm being completely honest, especially if you're intending to fish. The only other difference is really, because as you can tell, from looking at the hull, and if you've, spent any time on YouTube looking at the Tamarack, you'll have probably noticed from this video and obviously from the videos of the Tamarack, in comparison to one another, they're almost identical. And you can take that cue also from looking at the product descriptions online and just looking at images of them online. The hull is made out of the same material, and as far as I can tell, it's identical in terms of the molding. From the seating, from the footrests to the seating, to the back of the boat, the positions of the scupper holes, the bungee cord, like everything is really identical. The only major significant differences, as I said, come down to the seat. The Tamarack has a little bit more padding, and then a couple of little things here and there, aside from the coloring. On the Tamarack, you're going to have an adjustable rod holder somewhere around this front handle. I can't remember if it's on the left or the right. I think it's on the right, which is useful obviously because it's adjustable. You can spin it all around 360, and I can imagine that would be quite nice to have. And then as we come to the back of the boat, I believe the Tamarack has, in close approximation to the backrest, it has one rod holder here and then one rod holder there. So 3 rod holders in total. In addition to the rod holders, it also has an additional storage compartment entrance. So that right there is duplicated over here, but that depends entirely on whether you're fishing or not, I suppose. So those are the differences between the Tamarack and the Tahoma. So we have the color, we have the lack of the additional storage compartment, we have the lack of rod holders, and the price. If I have to be completely honest, none of those things are really a deal breaker for me. The lack of rod holders, for instance, is negligible because I'm going to be putting a milk crate on the back, and I'll come to that in a little while, but I'm going to be putting a milk crate right at the back of the boat, and I'm going to be putting some rod holders on it. So the fact that the Tamarack has 3 rod holders doesn't really mean too much to me. And then just to sort of piggyback from that too, the fact that the milk crate is going to be at the back of the boat, which on the Tamarack would mean it would be right on top of that storage compartment, it makes that second storage compartment pretty useless. So those are 2 things that are different on the Tamarack that I don't really need. The padding on the seating, it doesn't really concern me. Every review I've ever seen of the Tamarack suggests that additional padding is next to useless. So maybe it is more comfortable with the padding there, but in reality it seems like most people just upgrade to a different seat entirely, whether they get the Tamarack or the Tahoma. So again, it doesn't really concern me that there's no padding on that seat mold there. And then obviously, back to the color, you can only buy the Tahoma in a lime green. That does not concern me. I actually appreciate the lime green in the sense that it's high visibility. If I do come into any trouble for whatever reason, my kayak will be pretty easy to identify and pretty easy to spot from the air or from the shore. So if you can kind of look past the sort of ghoulish nature of lime green, and if your eyes can be averted to the reflection of it, then I think you can live with it, and I think I can live with it. So the color doesn't really bother me. So then the only major significant difference is the price. The Tahoma, as I say, I got on sale for about $175, and the Tamarack, which was on sale also, was $250. So for an additional $75, I was paying for an extra storage compartment I didn't need, 3 rod holders that I didn't need, and some padding on the seat mound, and some padding on the seat, which I didn't need. And then also a colour, moss green, which, whilst nice, I wasn't particularly enamored by. So all in all, I'm pretty glad I saved $75 and went with the Tahoma, considering, the construction of the hull is near identical, the material is the same, the layout is virtually the same. It's just a couple of additional items that were added to the Tamarack, all of which I don't really think you need. So if you want my final analysis just on sort of an early initial impressions perspective, then I would say, go with the Tahoma, because you can just upgrade the things that you don't like, and you can probably come in at a price point that is cheaper than just initially buying the Tamarack first time round anyway. So something to bear in mind.